The lie hangs in the air, a perfect, polished thing. Elias Vance stands in his workshop. The air smells of marine-grade sealant, clean motor oil, and the faint, sweet scent of sawdust from the corner where his daughter, Maya, builds her small wooden boats. Light from the high, grime-caked windows cuts through the dusty air in solid, golden beams. He holds a micrometer in one hand, its steel body cool and heavy against his palm. His other hand rests on the cylinder head of a vintage Sterling Marine V8 engine, the irons still holding a residual coldness from the night. He measures the valve clearance, a whisper of a gap, exactly to specification. He does not rush. The work has its own rhythm, a pace set by metal and tolerance, not by a clock on the wall. His movements are economical, precise. Each tool is returned to its designated spot on the pegboard, its outline traced in white paint. Order. It is the only thing he can control completely. Maya sits at a small, low bench he built for her. She is 7. Her brow is furrowed in concentration, mirroring his own. She is sanding a piece of driftwood, her small hands moving with a carefulness that belies her age. She is making a hull. "Daddy," she says, her voice soft in the cavernous space. "Is it smooth enough?" Elias sets down his tool. He walks over and kneels beside her. He runs his thumb over the wood. It is almost there. He does not answer immediately. He guides her hand, showing her how to feel the grain, to listen to the whisper of the sandpaper. "Almost," he says. "The water needs a perfect surface to flow. It doesn't like to fight." She nods, understanding. She returns to her work. The sound of her sanding is a gentle shushing that accompanies the distant cry of gulls and the low thrum of a passing freighter out on the Sound. This is his world. The engine block, the quiet child, the smell of salt and steel. It is a small world, but it is a whole one. It is enough. The phone buzzes in his pocket. He ignores it. It will be Marcus Thorne, Chief Operating Officer of Sterling Marine, wondering where he is. He is supposed to be at the shipyard for a final inspection of the new prototype with the company's new Chief Executive Officer. He knows this. The meeting was at 9. It is now 9:30. He finishes his check of the cylinder head. He wipes his hands on a clean red rag, folding it neatly when he is done. He looks at Maya. "Time to go, little bird," he says. She looks up, her eyes wide and serious. "Will she be there?" "Yes," Elias says. "She will be there." He does not need to ask who she is. Maya knows. The new boss, the daughter of the man who founded this company, the man who had been Elias's friend. Clara Sterling stands on the dry dock platform. The wind whips off the water, cold and damp, pulling at the lapels of her severe black coat. It is a man's world, this place of rust and diesel, and her presence in a tailored suit and sharp heels feels like an intrusion. She knows this. She uses it. Her gaze is fixed on the massive, half-finished yacht in the cradle. The company's future is tied to this vessel, to the revolutionary engine prototype nestled deep in its hull. An engine her father obsessed over in his final years. An engine designed by the man who is currently, unforgivably, late. Marcus Thorne stands beside her, a step behind, as is his habit. He exudes a practiced calm, a deferential confidence that she has come to rely on in the months since her father's death. "I apologize again for this, Clara," Marcus says, his voice a low murmur against the wind. "It's unprofessional. It's disrespectful to you and to your father's legacy." Clara does not look at him. Her jaw is tight. "Where is he?" "I've been trying his mobile." No answer, Marcus says, a carefully calibrated note of frustration in his tone. "Honestly, this has become a pattern. His focus just isn't what it used to be." She finally turns her head, her eyes narrowed. What does that mean? Marcus hesitates for a perfect 2-second beat. Your father, he gave Elias a lot of leeway, for old times' sake. He was sentimental about him, but sentiment doesn't meet deadlines, and it certainly doesn't impress the board. The words land exactly as he intends. They tap into her deepest insecurity, that she is not her father, that she does not possess his instinct for people, that she must be colder, harder, more decisive to command the same respect. Just then, an old, faded blue truck rattles into the shipyard parking lot. It pulls into a spot far from her own gleaming black sedan. Elias Vance gets out. He does not hurry. He walks towards them with a steady, unbothered gait. He wears worn denim and a thick wool sweater, his hands clean, but for the faint, ingrained lines of grease around his knuckles. He stops a respectful 10 feet away. He looks directly at Clara. His eyes are calm, steady. He does not offer an excuse. He does not apologize. He simply waits. The silence stretches. The wind snaps a rope against a nearby flagpole, a sharp, repetitive crack. You're late, Clara says. Her voice is flat, devoid of emotion. Yes, Elias answers. Marcus steps forward slightly. Clara, the board, our investors, they're waiting for my report on this inspection. This kind of delay reflects poorly on the entire project, on your new leadership. Clara's gaze does not leave Elias's face. She is searching for something. Remorse, defiance, anything. She finds nothing but a quiet stillness. It is this stillness that infuriates her more than any shouted excuse could. It feels like a judgment. This project is the most important thing happening at Sterling Marine, she says, her voice cutting through the wind. It requires absolute commitment. It requires punctuality. It requires respect. Elias says nothing. He just watches her. We no longer require your services, Mr. Vance, she says. The words are clipped, final. Marcus will see to the details. Have your personal tools removed from the premises by the end of the day. She turns before he can respond. She does not want to see his reaction. She does not want to feel the flicker of doubt that is already trying to ignite in her gut. She walks back toward her car, her heels clicking a sharp, angry rhythm on the asphalt. Marcus smirks, a fleeting, triumphant expression that vanishes as he turns to face Elias. You heard her, he says. You're done here. Elias Vance does not look at Marcus. His eyes follow Clara's retreating form. He watches her get into the car, watches it drive away. Only then does he turn his head and look at the man who has been his tormentor for years. He does not say a word. He gives a single, slow nod. Then he turns and walks back to his old blue truck, his posture unchanged, his pace steady. He does not defend himself. He does not explain where he was. He does not mention the sterile white hallways of the hospital, the hushed quiet of the billing department, or the thick envelope of cash he left with a clerk, money scraped together from years of careful saving. He does not say that the name on the account he just settled belonged to a 6-year-old boy named Leo Sterling, her son. The memory of the dismissal replays in Clara's mind. It sits like a piece of grit in a finely tuned machine. She is in her father's office, now her office. It is all glass and steel overlooking the city harbor. It is vast and silent. Her father's things are gone, replaced by her own minimalist aesthetic, but his presence lingers, a ghost of cigar smoke and quiet authority. She stares at the preliminary report from Marcus. It details Elias Vance's alleged performance issues, missed check-ins, unreturned calls, a general lack of engagement. It is a neat, tidy narrative that justifies her decision completely. It should feel like a victory, a decisive action. Proof that she is in command. It does not. What she remembers is his silence, the unnerving calm in his eyes. He had looked at her not with anger or shock, but with something that felt disturbingly like disappointment, as if he had expected more from her father's daughter. She pushes the thought away. She is the chief executive officer. She does not have time for sentiment. Marcus was right. Her father was too soft on the man. She does not believe the thought, not entirely. A week later, the rain comes. It is a relentless, driving storm that turns the coastal highway into a slick, black ribbon. Clara is driving back from a tense meeting with a supplier, her mind still churning with logistics and cost overruns. The city feels 100 miles away. The engine sputters. It coughs twice, a sick, metallic sound. Then, silence. The car glides to a stop on the shoulder, the dashboard dark, the only sound the frantic drumming of rain on the roof and the rhythmic sweep of the useless wipers. She tries the ignition. Nothing. She tries again. Still nothing. The polished, perfect German machine is dead. There is no cell service. The rain is getting heavier, blurring the world outside into a grey watercolor wash. She does not panic. She simply sits, her hands gripping the leather-wrapped steering wheel. She feels a wave of frustration so pure, it is almost clarifying. Of course, this would happen here, in the middle of nowhere, on a day like this. A pair of headlights cuts through the deluge. They slow. It is an old blue truck. It pulls up behind her, its engine a low, familiar rumble. Elias Vance gets out. He wears a heavy, waxed canvas jacket, the water beading on its surface. He walks to her window and taps lightly on the glass. She powers down the window a few inches. The cold, wet air rushes in. "Trouble?" he asks. His voice is even, calm. There is no hint of recognition, no "I told you so" in his eyes. "It's dead," she says, the words clipped. He nods. "Pop the hood." She does. He works quickly with an innate understanding of the machine. The rain plasters his dark hair to his forehead. His hands, which she had last seen holding a micrometer, move with a sureness that is mesmerizing. He does not seem to notice the cold or the wet. He is simply solving a problem. In the passenger seat of his truck, a small face is pressed against the glass. Maya. The child watches with wide, curious eyes. After a few minutes, he closes the hood. He comes back to her window. "The alternator," he says. "It's fried. You're not going anywhere in this tonight." "I see," Clara says. She's suddenly acutely aware of her vulnerability. Stranded, at the mercy of the man she fired. He seems to read her mind. "My workshop is a mile down the road. You can call a tow truck from there, and wait in the warm." He does not frame it as a question. It is a simple statement of fact. She hesitates for a count of 3. She has no other option. All right. The workshop is an island of light and warmth in the storm. The big wood stove in the corner radiates a dry heat that feels like a blessing. The smell of oil and coffee is strong. Elias hands her a thick, clean towel. Maya approaches her shyly. She holds a steaming mug in both hands. "Daddy made you cocoa," the girl says, holding it up. Clara is taken aback. She takes the mug. It is warm, solid. "Thank you." Maya nods and retreats to her small workbench. She picks up her piece of driftwood and begins to sand it again, the sound a soft counterpoint to the howling wind outside. Elias is on the phone, his back to her, arranging for a tow. His voice is low and capable. Clara watches him. She sees the way his worn sweater hangs on his broad shoulders. She sees the easy way he moves in this space, a space he so clearly commands. This is not the sullen, disrespectful employee from Marcus's reports. This is a man of quiet, unshakable competence. He hangs up the phone. "They'll be here in an hour or so," he says, turning to face her. An hour. In this place. With him. "Thank you," she says, and she means it. For stopping. He just nods. He picks up a rag and begins to wipe down a set of wrenches, his movements deliberate. The silence between them is not awkward. It is heavy, filled with the things they are not saying. Maya suddenly stops her sanding. She looks from her father to Clara. "Daddy says helping is more important than being on time," she says, her voice clear and high. It is not an accusation. It is a simple statement of her father's creed. The words land in the quiet room with the force of a physical blow. Elias freezes for a fraction of a second. He does not look at his daughter. He does not look at Clara. He continues to wipe the wrench in his hand, his knuckles white. Clara looks down into her mug of cocoa. The child's innocent wisdom has just dismantled the neat corporate logic of her decision. A seed of doubt, once a flicker, now takes root. It begins to grow. What if she was wrong? What if she allowed herself to be manipulated? The question is a cold weight in her stomach. The seed of doubt grows into a persistent, thorny vine. Back in her sterile office, Clara pulls up the financials for the prototype project. She goes back 6 months, then a year. She's looking for something, though she does not know what. A loose thread. She finds it. A series of invoices from a new supplier for critical engine components. The supplier, a company called Precision Alloy Works, was approved by Marcus Thorne 3 months ago. The costs are significantly higher than their previous supplier. The justification, signed by Marcus, cites superior material quality. Something about the name bothers her. She remembers her father talking about suppliers. He was fiercely loyal to the local machine shops, the ones he had worked with for decades. He trusted their craftsmanship. He would never have approved a new, unknown supplier for a project this important without exhaustive testing. She cross-references the invoice numbers with the original project budget her father had drafted. There is a discrepancy, a significant one. It is not just an overage, it is a fundamental change in the material specifications, a change that was never brought to her attention. This is the trigger. The quiet unease hardens into cold suspicion. She knows who she needs to talk to. Ben Carter. He had been her father's lead foreman for 40 years, retiring just a month after he died. Ben knew every nut, bolt, and secret in the shipyard, and he had been fiercely loyal to her father and to Elias Vance. She finds him in a small, cluttered workshop behind his house, the air thick with the smell of varnish and old wood. He is restoring a classic wooden skiff, the kind Sterling Marine used to build in the 50s. He moves slowly, his hands gnarled with arthritis, but his eyes are sharp and clear. He straightens up when he sees her. He wipes his hands on a rag. His expression is neutral, guarded. "Clara," he says. It is not a question. "Ben," she replies. "The boat is beautiful." "She has good bones," he says, running a hand along the curved hull. "Like your father's company, or what's left of it." The gentle rebuke lands. She decides not to prevaricate. "I need to ask you about Elias Vance." Ben's eyes narrow. He picks up a block plane and studies its blade. "Fired the best engine man on the entire coast. Your father must be spinning in his grave." "I was told he was unreliable," she says, the words tasting like ash in her mouth. Ben gives a short, harsh laugh. "Unreliable. That man is the anchor. That's what your father called him. The one man who cared as much about the Sterling name as he did. the one man who couldn't be bought. He looks at her directly now. You've been listening to the wrong people, girl. You've been listening to the snake in the garden. Marcus Thorne, she says, her voice barely a whisper. Ben nods slowly. Your father was watching him. He knew Marcus was cutting corners, lining his own pockets, but he needed proof. Hard proof. And the only person Marcus couldn't fool was Elias. Elias sees the truth in the metal. He can feel a lie in a faulty bearing. Why didn't anyone tell me? She asks, a note of desperation in her voice. Because you came in swinging, Ben says, his voice softening slightly. You came in like you had something to prove, ready to burn the old world down to build your new one. You didn't ask. You told. People like me, we just got out of the way. People like Elias, he just took the blow. It's what he does. He gestures to a dusty set of rolled-up blueprints on a high shelf. Your father's original designs for the prototype, the real ones, before Thorne's revisions. Take a look at the materials specified for the piston heads. Compare them to what that new supplier of his is providing. If you want the truth, that's where you start. Clara leaves Ben's workshop with the heavy roll of blueprints under her arm. The truth feels close, and it feels dangerous. She needs to see him again. She needs a reason. The tow bill for her car. It is the perfect excuse. She drives to his workshop in the late afternoon. The storm has passed, leaving the air washed clean and smelling of pine and wet earth. The sun is low, casting long shadows. She finds him not in the workshop, but behind it, in the small yard that slopes down to the water. He and Maya are on their knees in a small vegetable garden. He is showing her how to stake up tomato plants. The scene is so gentle, so utterly peaceful, it makes her ache. This is the life she has disrupted. He sees her and stands, wiping the dirt from his hands onto his jeans. He does not seem surprised. I came to pay you, she says, holding out an envelope. For the tow. He does not take it. The driver is a friend. There's no bill. Oh, she says, feeling foolish. Well, thank you again. She should leave. She does not. Ben Carter said I should talk to you. Elias's expression does not change, but a new watchfulness enters his eyes. He gave me these, she says, unrolling the blueprints on the hood of her car. My father's original designs. Elias walks over. He looks down at the intricate drawings. He runs a finger over the detailed call-outs for the alloy composition of the pistons. A flicker of something, sadness, anger, vindication, crosses his face before it is gone. He knew, Elias says. It is a statement, not a question. Ben thinks Marcus is using an inferior alloy, Clara says, from a new supplier. He is, Elias confirms. It's cheaper, lighter, it looks good on a spec sheet, but it's brittle. Under high torque, in open water, it'll fracture. The failure would be catastrophic. Why didn't you say anything? The question bursts out of her, filled with a week's worth of frustration and doubt. When I fired you, why did you just stand there and let me do it? He looks at her then, and for the first time, she sees the depth of the weariness in his eyes. And who would you have believed, Miss Sterling? Me? Or the man who had your ear? The man who was telling you everything you wanted to hear about efficiency and modernizing? To fight him then would have been useless. It would have looked like sour grapes. You had to see it for yourself, in the numbers, in the metal. Maya comes over and slips her small, dirt-smudged hand into her father's. She looks up at Clara, her expression serious. Daddy doesn't fight with words, she says. He fights with work. Clara looks from the child to the father, at the blueprints spread across the hood of her car, at the quiet integrity of this man she so profoundly misjudged. The last piece of the puzzle is not here, in the metal. It is somewhere else. It is in the memory of her father's worry. She drives straight from Elias's workshop to her father's house, the grand, empty mansion she has been avoiding for months. It feels cold, a museum of a life that is over. She goes to his study. The room is exactly as he left it. The air is stale, thick with the ghost of his presence. Her eyes land on a small, ornate wooden box on his desk. It is locked. She had assumed it was just a decorative object. Now she looks closer. She remembers him fiddling with it, a thoughtful expression on his face. She tries the drawers of his desk. In the very back of the bottom drawer, hidden beneath old tax returns, she finds a small brass key. It fits. The lock clicks open. Inside, there is no treasure. There is a small, black, leather-bound ledger and a single, thick envelope with her name written on it in her father's familiar, strong script. Her hands tremble as she opens the letter. "My dearest Clara," the letter begins. "If you are reading this, it means I am gone, and you have found your way past the noise. I am so proud of the woman you have become, but I worry. I worry that in your desire to be strong, you will forget to be wise. Do not trust Marcus Thorne. He is a patient predator. I have been gathering evidence of his fraud for years. It is all in the ledger. He has been systematically replacing quality with cheap imitations, pocketing the difference. He is a rot at the core of this company." The letter continues, detailing his deep respect for Elias Vance. "Elias is the opposite of Marcus in every way. He is the heart of this company. Years ago, I offered him a partnership, a seat on the board. He turned me down. His wife had just passed, and he said his only job was to be a father to Maya. He promised me he would always protect the work, the integrity of the sterling name, from the workshop floor. He is a man of his word. Trust him. He will never steer you wrong." The final paragraph makes the breath catch in her throat. "I have one last request. Look after your boy. I know the medical bills for Leo are a terrible burden. I set up a private fund to help, but I suspect Marcus will find a way to block you from accessing it after I am gone. Please, Clara, do not let your grief or your pride build a wall between you and your son. He needs you. The ledger confirms everything. Detailed entries, dates, account numbers, a clear, damning trail of Marcus's embezzlement. But it is the last line of the letter that consumes her. The medical bills. They had been astronomical. A month ago she had received a notice from the hospital, a final demand for a payment so large it made her feel sick. She had been steeling herself to sell off a portion of her stock to cover it. Then, 2 weeks ago, she had received a new statement. It showed a balance of 0. An administrative error, she had assumed. She had been too busy, too overwhelmed to question the good fortune. Now a cold dread washes over her. The date on the statement. It was the morning she fired Elias Vance. The morning he was late. She pulls out her phone. Her fingers feel clumsy, numb. She finds the number for the hospital's billing department. She identifies herself. She questions the error on her son's account. The clerk is flustered. "No, ma'am, it wasn't an error. The account was paid in full. An anonymous benefactor. He came in person." Clara closes her eyes. "Can you describe him?" I'm not supposed to," the clerk stammers. "Please," Clara says, her voice breaking. "It's important." "He was very quiet," the clerk says after a long pause. "Tall. He wore a work jacket. His hands, they looked like a mechanic's hands. He paid in cash, said it was for a friend." The phone slips from Clara's grasp and clatters onto the polished floor of her father's study. The truth is no longer a suspicion. It is a terrible, gut-wrenching certainty. She had destroyed the one man who was trying to save her in every way a person could be saved. It is nearly midnight when she pulls up to his workshop. The lights are still on. She sees his silhouette moving inside. She gets out of the car, her father's letter clutched in her hand. He is at his workbench, meticulously cleaning a set of calipers. He looks up as she enters, his expression unreadable. "The hospital," she says, her voice raw. "Leo's bills. It was you." He stops his work. He sets the tool down on a clean cloth. He does not deny it. "Why?" she asks, the single word encompassing a universe of confusion and shame. "Elias, why would you do that?" "Your father was my friend," he says simply. "He was worried about his grandson. He asked me to keep an eye out, to make sure you were both okay." "And the meeting? The one you were late for?" "The bank doesn't open until 9, he says, a faint, sad smile touching his lips for the first time. It took a while to get the cash. She finally understands his silence on the day she fired him. To explain would have been to reveal his charity. Marcus would have twisted it instantly, painted it as a bribe, as blackmail, as a pathetic attempt to curry favor. He would have used her son's illness as a weapon against them both. So Elias had accepted the blow. He had protected her from the truth, at the cost of his own reputation and livelihood. "I am so sorry," she whispers, the words inadequate, hollow. "I was blind. I let him—" "You didn't know," Elias says, cutting her off gently. "You were grieving, and he told you a story that made sense. You had to see the truth for yourself." A small sound comes from the doorway of the little office at the back of the workshop. Maya stands there in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. She must have been asleep on the cot inside. She looks at Clara, her face full of sleep and concern. She sees the tears welling in Clara's eyes. The little girl walks over. She does not say a word. She wraps her small arms around Clara's legs and gives her a fierce, comforting hug. In that simple, profound gesture of acceptance, Clara feels a piece of her own frozen heart begin to thaw. The alliance is forged in the quiet hours of the following nights. The prototype engine, sabotaged by Marcus's inferior parts, must be rebuilt. It is a high-stakes, race-against-the-clock repair. The primary investor is due for a final demonstration in less than a week. Clara effectively moves into the workshop. She has the authentic, high-grade alloys from her father's trusted supplier delivered by the truckload. She works alongside Elias, not as a chief executive officer, but as an apprentice. She cleans parts, fetches tools, holds the light steady. She learns the language of his craft, the satisfying heft of a torque wrench, the smell of hot metal, the precise click of a bearing seating perfectly into place. They work mostly in silence, punctuated by his quiet instructions. He is a patient teacher. She is a focused student. The shared task builds a bridge between them, a structure made of mutual respect and coffee in mismatched mugs at 3 in the morning. She sees the artist in the craftsman. He sees the capable, intelligent woman beneath the armor she had worn. The day of the board meeting arrives. Clara walks into the conference room with a calm she has never felt before. The room is all polished mahogany and hushed, expensive silence. The board members, grey men in grey suits, look at her with skepticism. Marcus Thorne, at the head of the table, gives her a confident, patronizing smile. She does not begin with accusations. She begins with numbers. She projects her father's ledger onto the large screen. She walks them through the discrepancies, the shell companies, the inflated invoices, her voice steady and factual. She presents the metallurgical reports comparing the specified alloys to the fraudulent ones supplied by Marcus's company. The case she builds is methodical, irrefutable, and cold. Marcus's smile falters. He begins to bluster, to deny. This is absurd. A fabrication by a disgruntled employee she's clearly taken a liking to. Are you referring to Elias Vance? Clara asks, her voice dangerously soft. The man you systematically discredited? The man you knew was the only one capable of exposing you? As if on cue, the conference room doors open. Elias Vance walks in. He wears the same simple, clean work clothes he always does. He holds a single object in his hand. He walks to the table and places it in the center of the polished wood. It is a piston head. There is a hairline fracture running through its crown, a fatal, glittering flaw. This is from the prototype, Elias says, his voice quiet but resonant in the silent room. It was subjected to a standard pressure test yesterday. It failed. The alloy is too brittle. Had this engine been installed on the yacht, it would have disintegrated at full throttle. The resulting fire would have destroyed the vessel and likely killed everyone on board. He does not raise his voice. He does not need to. His testimony, backed by the physical evidence of the broken part, is devastating. The moral weight of his quiet integrity fills the room, and in its presence, Marcus's blustering lies wither into nothing. The vote is unanimous. Marcus Thorne is removed, effective immediately. Security is called to escort him from the building. Legal counsel is instructed to pursue full criminal charges. In the aftermath, the chairman of the board publicly offers Elias his old position back, along with a newly created role, Vice President of Quality and Innovation, and a handsome compensation package is mentioned. Elias looks not at the chairman, but at Clara. He gives a slight, almost imperceptible shake of his head. My work is in the shop, he says, and then he turns and leaves. Later, Clara finds him in the cavernous, empty parking garage. He is leaning against his old blue truck, waiting for her. The air is cool and smells of concrete and exhaust fumes. The tension of the day has drained away, leaving a quiet, shared exhaustion. You were incredible, she says. I just told the truth, he replies. They offered you a vice presidency, she says, a question in her voice. He shakes his head again. That's your world, Clara. Mine is different. My life is here, with Maya, with the work. She understands. He is not a man who can be bought, not with money, not with a title. His wealth is of a different kind. They stand in silence for a long count. The hum of the garage ventilation is the only sound. I get it, she says finally. Thank you, Elias, for everything. He just nods. He gets into his truck and drives away, leaving her alone in the echoing quiet of the garage. 2 weeks pass. Life settles into a new rhythm. Clara, now firmly in control of her company, begins the slow, arduous process of undoing the damage Marcus has done. She is decisive, respected, and for the first time, confident in her own skin. One Saturday morning, a moving truck rumbles down the quiet coastal lane where Elias lives. It pulls up to the small, weathered cottage for rent next door to his property, the one with the big oak tree in the yard. Elias is in his garden with Maya. He watches as the movers begin to unload boxes. A familiar black sedan pulls in behind the truck. Clara gets out. She wears jeans and a simple grey sweater. She looks younger, less severe. She walks over to the low stone wall that separates their properties. Morning, she says, a small, genuine smile on her face. Elias looks at the moving truck, then back at her. He does not ask the obvious question. He just waits. I sold my father's house, she says. It was too big, too quiet, and the commute was getting to be too much. He absorbs this. She's not pulling him into her world. She's making a deliberate, concrete move to join him in his. It is a reciprocal gesture of profound significance. Maya runs over to the wall. "Are you going to be our neighbor?" she asks, her face alight with excitement. "I am," Clara says, her eyes still on Elias. Later that day, after the movers have gone, Elias walks over. He finds her on the porch, wrestling with a flat-packed bookshelf. He takes the instructions from her hand, studies them for a moment, and then begins to assemble it with an easy, practiced skill. When he is done, he reaches into his pocket. He pulls out a small, heavy object, wrapped in a soft cloth. He hands it to her. She unwraps it. It is a single, perfectly machined component from the rebuilt prototype engine. It is a governor weight, a small, intricate piece of steel he has polished to a mirror shine. It feels cool and solid in her hand. "So you always know what's real," he says. She closes her hand around the symbolic gift. It feels like an anchor, a promise. 3 months later. The sun is warm on the deck of the Maya, a newly christened test boat powered by the first production model of the new Sterling Vance engine. The company is thriving, its reputation restored and enhanced. Orders are pouring in. The engine hums, a deep, powerful, and perfect sound. Maya stands at the helm, her small hands on the wheel. Elias's larger hands rest gently over hers, guiding her. They are heading out into the open water of the Sound. Clara stands near the stern, leaning against the rail. She is not dressed as a chief executive officer. She wears a simple windbreaker, her hair tied back, her face free of makeup. The salt spray hits her face, and she closes her eyes, a real, unguarded smile spreading across her lips. She watches them, the father and daughter, a complete and perfect unit. Leo, her son, is here too, sitting on a bench, watching the shoreline recede, his health visibly improved, his laughter bright and frequent. He and Maya have become fast friends. They are not quite a family, but they are something close. A new constellation taking shape. That evening, after the children are asleep, Elias and Clara stand on his small wooden dock. The water is a sheet of dark glass, reflecting a sky full of stars. The lights from his house and her cottage cast a warm, overlapping glow on the shore. A gentle breeze carries the scent of salt and night-blooming jasmine. They stand close. Their shoulders are inches apart. They do not touch. They do not need to. They watch the tide come in, the water lapping softly against the pilings. He does not ask her about the future. She does not ask him for promises. The quiet between them is not empty. It is full of everything they have been through. It is full of an unspoken understanding, an earned hope. The future is here, in this peaceful, shared stillness, waiting for them.